Queen Camilla holds patronage over more than 90 charities across the United Kingdom, and what's remarkable isn't the number, it's what happens to the people those charities serve if that name ever comes off. There's been a lot of speculation recently about Camilla's standing within the institution, about whether her role is secure, about what the future of her public portfolio actually looks like, and most of that conversation has been about Buckingham Palace politics. But almost nobody is asking the more interesting question: what does her patronage list actually mean to the people on the other end of it, and how fragile is that connection really? To understand what's really at stake, you have to understand what a royal patronage actually is, because most people get it wrong. It's not honorary. It's not a title you frame and hang on a wall. When a senior royal becomes patron of an organisation, that organisation gains access to something money genuinely can't buy: visibility, credibility, and the ability to walk into rooms that would otherwise stay closed. Camilla currently holds patronage or presidency over more than 90 organisations. Her portfolio covers health, literacy, domestic abuse support, animal welfare, the elderly, the arts, and veteran support. That's not a PR exercise. That's a functioning infrastructure. Her very first patronage tells you everything about how she approaches this. In 1994, Camilla's mother, Rosalind Shand, died of osteoporosis at 72 years old. That same year, Camilla became patron of what's now called the Royal Osteoporosis Society. That patronage is held for over 30 years now. But the work that's drawn the most attention is her involvement in domestic abuse. So, the natural question is, how did a Queen consort end up as one of the most visible advocates for domestic violence survivors in Britain? It started in 2016 at the London office of a charity called SafeLives. Camilla, then the Duchess of Cornwall, attended what was meant to be a routine visit. She sat in a room and listened to survivors tell their stories. According to her own account, given later in an interview with the BBC, the experience shook her in a way she wasn't expecting. She described it as one of her most harrowing days in public life and said the stories she heard that afternoon still haunted her. That visit changed the direction of her charitable work. She didn't just move on to the next engagement, she went back. She hosted a reception at Clarence House specifically to bring together organisations working on domestic abuse, the first time that range of stakeholders had been gathered under one roof in the UK, specifically to discuss sexual violence and abuse. She met Angelina Jolie and then Foreign Secretary William Hague to discuss ending sexual violence in conflict zones. And in 2020, she formally became patron of SafeLives, work that sits alongside the broader legislative landscape shaped by the Domestic Abuse Act, which passed through Parliament in 2021 and gave formal legal teeth to much of what these charities had been pushing for. If you're finding value in this kind of coverage, take a second to subscribe. It helps more than you'd think. That single patronage now touches more than 75,000 adults and 95,000 children every year. Those aren't projected figures. Those are the people SafeLives directly serves annually through its programs across the country. But there's a quieter initiative that says even more about how she works. In 2013, 3 years before that SafeLives visit, Camilla created something called the Wash Bags Project. The concept is almost painfully simple. When a victim of rape or sexual assault goes through a forensic examination, their clothing is taken as evidence. They're left with nothing. The Wash Bags Project provides them with basic toiletries and a change of clothes. That's it. A bag with a toothbrush, soap, and something clean to wear. It's been running for 13 years now. It doesn't generate headlines. It doesn't win awards. It just keeps showing up in examination rooms across the country, quietly making one of the worst moments in a person's life slightly less dehumanizing. That's the kind of work that disappears the moment nobody's name is behind it. So what does all of this actually add up to? Here's where the structural question gets uncomfortable. Royal patronages are not permanent. They're not inherited. They don't belong to the person. They belong to the role. When Queen Elizabeth II died in 2022, she held 492 patronages. Buckingham Palace launched a formal review of more than 1,000 organisations connected to the Crown. When the numbers came back in May 2024, roughly 170 organisations lost their royal connection entirely. Gone. No replacement patron, no transition plan, no soft landing, just a letter informing them that the relationship had ended. Of Camilla's own 100 patronages from her time as Duchess of Cornwall, 91 were retained or redistributed within the family, 9 were simply dropped. And the ones that survived weren't guaranteed to stay with her. Some were passed to other royals as part of the wider redistribution. That review happened under normal, stable conditions. A planned succession, a cooperative transition. Nobody was being pushed out. Nobody's role was under public question. It was orderly, institutional, and still nearly 200 organisations lost their royal backing overnight. Now imagine what happens when the transition isn't orderly. There's a term for what Camilla would become if Charles were to die or abdicate: Queen Dowager. It's an old designation. It signals that the holder was previously Queen Consort but no longer occupies an active constitutional role. A Queen Dowager has no formal duties. Her public profile, her household structure, her patronage portfolio, all of it falls to the discretion of the new sovereign. According to royal historians and recent legal analysis, precedent suggests she'd retain some charitable affiliations and a visible but reduced presence. But the word that matters in that sentence is suggests. There's no guarantee, there's no contract, there's no statute that says SafeLives keeps its royal patron. And that new sovereign would be Prince William. Camilla's relationship with William, the Prince of Wales, the man who would inherit the throne, is the axis around which all of this turns. He would decide which of her patronages carry forward under his reign, which get redistributed, and which simply end. That's not speculation. That's how the constitutional mechanism works. It's the same process that played out after the 2023 coronation, when Camilla was formally crowned queen alongside Charles, and her portfolio was officially restructured to reflect her elevated role. And it would repeat, under far less predictable circumstances, if the succession clock moved again. The Queen's reading room makes this point sharper than anything else in her portfolio. Camilla didn't inherit it, she built it. It started as an Instagram book club during the COVID lockdown in 2021, just her, recommending books she liked. By 2023, it had become a registered charity. By 2025, it had reached readers in 174 countries, donated over 2,300 books to hospitals and homeless shelters, launched an annual literary festival at Hampton Court Palace, started a podcast, and created the Queen's Reading Room Medal to honour people championing reading in their communities. Just last month, on her 79th birthday, Camilla announced a mass book gifting programme. Every year, 6 child in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and every P6 student in Scotland would receive a free book as part of the National Year of Reading 2026. That's not a figurehead operation. That's a functioning charity with staff, infrastructure, international reach, and active partnerships with organisations like the National Literacy Trust and St Mungo's homeless shelters. And its name has the word Queen in it. So here's the question nobody in the palace conversation is asking. If Camilla's institutional standing shifts, for any reason under any circumstances, what happens to the Queen's reading room? Does it rebrand? Does it survive without royal backing? What about the Washbags project, without someone in the room championing it at the level Camilla does? Does it keep reaching examination rooms across the country? What about SafeLives? 75,000 adults, 95,000 children every year. The conversation about Camilla's future has been almost entirely about Camilla, her title, her standing, her relationship to Prince William, her place in the institution. It's a conversation that stretches back decades, to her years as the Duchess of Cornwall, to the long shadow of Princess Diana, and to a public that took a very long time to extend her any grace at all. The arc from that history to Queen Consort to the 2023 coronation is one of the more remarkable rehabilitation stories in modern royal history. But the more important story isn't about her at all. It's about the people who show up to a SafeLives centre on a Tuesday morning. It's about the woman in a forensic examination room who opens a wash bag and finds a toothbrush. It's about a kid in a Year 6 classroom who gets a book with a royal stamp on the cover and reads something that changes the way they see the world. Those are the people whose futures are actually tied to the answer. And right now, nobody's asking them what they think. What do you think really happened here? Drop it in the comments and subscribe to the Royal Report News so you don't miss what comes next.